Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Margarita Way to Success podcast. Today, we have a beautiful guest with us, Reneau Peurifoy. After more than 2 decades as a therapist and teacher, Reneau has become a master at reducing complex ideas into simple. Who wants more simplicity in their lives? Easy to understand terms and applying them to daily life. Hello, Reneau. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I've been around for a while. So I worked with anxiety disorders for about 20 years, and then I left that and went into teaching at a local college, psychology and some other things. And currently, I'm retired. I still do writing. I got my new book coming out actually in May, Why You Feel the Way You Do. So I've been working with a lot of different things, done a lot of talking, worked with a lot of different types of people, different areas, a lot of panic disorder.
So this is the most common things that you see. It's panic disorders and what?
Well, that's what I specialized in. So people who had panic attacks, and when I started, not a whole lot was known about it. In fact, it was very common for me to see people who'd been experiencing panic attacks for 20 years and not knowing what was going on. And nowadays, it's pretty well understood. So people get to therapy pretty quickly, which is kind of nice because then it's a lot easier to resolve than somebody who's had it going on for 10, 15 years. So a lot of panic disorder. I worked with other types of disorders too, some simple phobias and like fear of flying, things of that nature. But anxiety was my main thing, a little of OCD. So
Can you tell me a little bit more about anxiety and why is it happening? Why people experience anxiety?
Well, anxiety, you have two fear circuits. One of them is danger, and one of them is separation anxiety. Separation anxiety, we don't need to deal with that one right now. But it's the thought of something danger. And again, with human beings, it's interesting because just thinking about a danger causes your body to react as if it's actually there and present. Likewise, thinking about success causes your body to react accordingly. You get excited and things. So the connection between your thoughts and your physical reactions is very strong. In fact, I was just reading an article about the brain. They've discovered a whole new mechanism within your motor system that connects into your thinking parts of your brain, so that just thinking about stuff causes your body to react to all your organs, your stomach and your visceral stuff. And so anxiety is essentially somebody thinking that there's danger or some kind of a threat in their life. And one of the most common everyday anxieties, of course, is public speaking. So they're afraid people are going to judge them, or they're afraid they're going to make a mistake and make a fool of themselves. And so that's a threat. And so that's going to cause that anxious feeling inside of them. In fact, in extreme cases, they get so anxious they don't want to talk. So that's probably one of the more common ones.
There is a reflection from people around me. Can you tell me about that a little bit? How do we perceive this reflection? How we can get out of this maybe fears of judgment and what others thinks about us? It's again the same topic, but
Right.
more important. So I want.
It's a part of it's kind of maturing. When I first started doing classes and stuff, in fact, I play guitar. When I first started playing guitar out in public, I was terrified of making a mistake or play the wrong chord or something like that. And it takes a while realizing that if I make a mistake, it's no big deal. Just let the dead bury the dead and move on to the next one, right? And most people aren't going to notice the little flubs. And if they do, like I said, it's not that big a deal to most people. And you also mentioned another thing about just practicing. Desensitization is a big part of it, is getting out there and doing it, and just having yourself in that arena where you become comfortable, whatever it is that you're doing, wherever you're speaking. The more you do it, the more comfortable you become. And again, the more you can manage those symptoms, and especially the self-talk. The self-talk is so important because people have all of these negative things. In fact, what I will do is I'll say, okay, what are you thinking in the past when you've had fears? What kind of thoughts come through your head? And I actually have them write those down, and we come up with a counter for every one of them, so that if that thought comes up, oh, what are people going to think? Okay, I can say this to myself if that thought comes to me. Or what if I make a mistake? Okay, I can say this to myself. Mistakes are not that big a deal. Everybody makes mistakes. Mistakes are part of the learning process. Just accept that and move on. So you come up with very specific things to tell yourself for all of the fears that you have, because sometimes they're very individual. It's Let me digress from public speaking for a moment. I had one person who was afraid of going up escalators, and the thought in their mind they had is, what if the escalator stops and I can't get off? So we talked about that for a moment. Yeah, so you'll be there 20 years later, a lot of skeletons, we made kind of fun of it, right? So, well, eventually you'll be able to get off. So then we come up with, what can I do if the escalator does stop? Well, you could say something like, I think I'm going to be sick, and people will get out of your way, right? So we came up with something, very practical things. So the same thing with making mistakes. When I was doing a teaching, what I learned to say, because sometimes your mind goes blank, right? And then you can really freeze up at that moment. And so I just started saying, well, okay, guys, my brain just turned to jelly. Forgot what I was going to say. It'll come to me in a moment. And interestingly enough, it would always come 5 minutes. Oh yeah, here's what I was going to say. So if you come up with a specific strategy for, if this happens, here's what I'm going to do, that becomes very helpful too. And just realizing that instead of becoming frightened of mistakes, make fun of them. Okay, guys, I'm human. I just messed up. We'll pick up the pieces and move on. The more you can adopt that attitude, the easier it is when you're in front of people.
It's amazing what you share, because this is all about turning anything to fun, to inspiration, and to serve. And when you talked about escalators, so I thought about what I can ask myself, what is the worst thing that can happen? The worst thing at this moment. And the worst thing, it's never the worst thing. So when we are aware, so it's actually making sense.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so fun to see. And also about the fun. So when you think about fun, when you laugh, there is no fears in laughter.
Yeah.
So just we release everything, and we can move on and see beyond the limitations that we have in our in our body, in our mind. I want to ask you about daily habits and how they can affect the fears or lack of fears, seeing beyond the fears.
Well, we kind of get into worldview, and I know when you work with the more severe fears like panic disorder, there's a variety of things you do. One is just, again, all of the tools for managing your body, the combat breathing, the relaxation response, that type of stuff, externalization, focusing. Like with public speaking, there's the old trick of, okay, find 3 people in your audience that are sympathetic, right? One in the middle, one on the side, on each side, so you can kind of talk to those 3 people and nobody else. And that helps a lot, because there's always somebody in there that's very sympathetic, and so you focus on that person, and everybody around them thinks you're talking to them, right? But you're really not. You're just talking to that 1 or 2 people. But we start getting into some of the thinking habits, like all or nothing thinking, catastrophizing. Sometimes that type of cognitive restructuring is what it's called, is important. So people do a lot of what if thinking, for example, if that's a habit pattern. Again, there's basically 4 things you do. And what I do is I say, okay, so what are the chances of that happening? And again, people do what is called emotional reasoning. That means it feels like it's going to happen, therefore it probably is going to happen. See, and they're not looking at reality. So I would always ask them, whatever the what if is, so how many times has that happened? Well, that's never happened. So based on reality, it's a very low chance. Based on your emotion, it's a very high chance. So let's take a look at reality. It's a very low chance that you're going to totally screw up and mess up at stage or whatever it is. And then the second thing is, what are the consequences, right? How bad would it be if that actually happened? And for some things it's bad, but for most things it's not that big a deal, right? But again, emotional reasoning, if I make a mistake, it's going to be the worst thing in the world. Everybody's going to see me and I'm never going to get over it. Oh my gosh, this is awful. So you need to take, on a scale of 1 to 10, okay, that's really not that bad. It's not like having your leg cut off or your child die or something like that. That's really awful, right? but making a mistake while I'm talking in front of people is not anywhere near that, right? So you have to, again, take a look at, get out of the emotional reasoning. And then the third step is, okay, how do I prevent that from happening? Well, in the case of public speaking, I can be prepared, right? I can practice. I can go to places like Toastmaster. I can get used to doing things. Okay. And then the fourth thing, of course, is what would I do if that were to happen? And of course, in my case, I just make fun of it and move on. So again, the fourth steps are, how likely, or what are the chances that it would happen? How bad would it be? And then those are the two that you got to kind of tone down the level, because emotional reasoning will exaggerate them. And actually, most people never get to the third and fourth step because they just start cycling through. Oh my gosh, it's going to happen. It's going to be the worst thing. I know it's going to happen. I know I'm going to mess it. It's going to be the worst thing in the world. Oh, I know it's going to. And they just go around in a circle in those two. So you got to get to those next things. What will I do? And how can I prevent it? Right.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And can you tell me about more about emotions, and when people experience emotions, do you see the power more in thoughts, emotions, or combining both together?
Well, I mean, emotions are part of our how we're wired, and it's interesting because neuroscience has now identified like seven actual circuits in our body that generate the different emotions. One of the interesting ones is the play circuit, and all mammals have the play circuit. You see that like in puppies and kittens or little babies, the goat dancing around out in the field, or babies, like I've got my great granddaughter that we watch now on Mondays and Tuesdays, and she loves to be tickled, just, oh, tickle me, you know, or be chased or hide and seek. And as adults, of course, we like to play too, unless it's been beaten out of us. And that's why we like to joke with each other and play games and do stuff like that. And that's a very powerful circuit if you can tune into it and use that to kind of counteract some of the negative circuits that go on. So that's one that I find it very interesting. Another one is something called the seeking circuit. And if you look at like babies or, kittens or dogs or whatever, they want to explore their environment. The baby goes around picking up everything, looking at everything. And even as adults, it's very active in us. You go into a new room, an auditorium or something, first thing you do is you check everything out, and it's part of that, wanting to see, are there good things or are there bad things in our environment? And it's an actual emotional circuit, just like anger or fear that we have. So emotions are part of us, and they are generated by reality, things that are going on outside of us, but also our thought patterns. And again, so getting back to some of the ways you think, if you catastrophize everything, if you do a lot of all or nothing thinking, it's either black or white, learning to find that middle ground. And also some of your core beliefs, how do you view the world? Some people grow up and they have what we call a core response pattern, where the world is dangerous, right? And so they're always on edge, and that might have been their reality as a kid. They might have grown up in an area or in a family where it was dangerous. And unfortunately, now as an adult, they're still looking at the world through that lens. So sometimes taking a look at some of those core response patterns that developed early on and modifying them, bringing you into, again, the adult world, the here and now, becomes very, very important. That's more long-term type stuff, though.
I was researching a little bit about this topic. What is the number one fear in the world? And what I heard is mostly before the pandemic, it was public speaking. And after the pandemic, it's being alone, switched. And so can you tell me how do you perceive this? And if you see it around your clients, maybe?
Well, we have, I guess, a pandemic of loneliness in a sense in this country, because we've become so isolated. If you go back 100 years, people grew up, they had extended family, they knew everybody in the town, they knew who the village shop, the grocer was, and different people and stuff. And they were very rich in relationship. And nowadays, people are very impoverished in relationship, especially the younger generation, with the misuse of social media. Okay, I got 500 friends. Well, you have something that says friends, but are they really friends? We were talking beforehand about how the things that make a person happy, one of the core things is deep, meaningful relationships. If you don't have that, then that loneliness, again, that one of those emotional circuits, the separation anxiety, the need to connect with somebody, the caring circuit, those two circuits are not being fed. And so you just feel very alone. We need human contact because we are social beings. And it needs to be not a superficial contact, but it's somebody that you can really be yourself with. If you're hurting, you can say, wow, this happened and I'm just so, so sad about it, or I'm so excited about this thing happening. And that person responds to you in a very genuine way. And it needs to be something where you actually have an eye contact and a physical contact. One of the problems with social media is it's you don't get that. It's very artificial, especially like with Twitter or something like that, where it's just written words on a screen. We are physical beings. We are designed to respond to the verbal cues. I mean, that's why you pick up on intuitions on people. Little kids are very good at reading your behavior, just like a dog or a cat. They can see your subtle micro expressions, they can see your body stance, and they can read that. And it's something that's built into us. One of the ways I demonstrate that is if I say, I love you. Hey, I love you, guy. I love you. You know what all three of those mean, even though it's the same words, just because you got the visual and the tone and the facial expression. We're designed to read people, and we need that interaction. We need that physical contact in order to feel connected with somebody.
Beautiful. You said it so well, and you give us so many takeaways for the listeners, to our audience. And can you, if you choose one takeaway right now for the people who are listening, can you give us in one sentence, maybe more, one takeaway? I know that it's really hard.
We've covered a lot of areas.
We're all about simplicity, so we want to make it simple, and we want to give one takeaway for our listeners to see what do we want to tell them.
Well, I would say too, in terms of fears, again, most fears are manageable. So take a look at, go through the little process of, how likely is it to happen? How bad would it be? And be realistic, base it on reality. And then what can I do about it? And how can I prevent it? Those 4 steps I find for people that have a lot of anticipatory what if type of thinking are very useful. The other one is if you don't have deep, meaningful relationships, you need to that's something to seek in life. Whether it's through like a church, whether it's through like a social organization, or whether it's through a club or something, finding 2 or 3 people that you can connect with on a deep level, going out to lunch, playing a game together. There's I think it's a Jewish saying that I really like. It's I want 6 people carried by casket that are not looking at their watch.
I never heard about it, but maybe.
Yeah. But I heard a long time ago. I always thought that's good. I mean, you want those people that you're connected to. If you have some meaningful people connected to in your life, your mental health is going to be good. Because so much of what you see nowadays, people are isolated and they're not meeting their basic human needs.
Thank you so much for your takeaway. And is there any ways people can connect with you and find you on social media? Because this is how we can connect around the world, but then we can also connect in person and help others.
Well, so the website's easy. It's why-emotions, why-emotions.com. So you go to why-emotions.com and you find links to everything else. My YouTube channel, I've got some videos up on there, and the books that I've written, all that type of stuff. So it's amazing. It's an easy way to find everything.
We will put everything in the description under the videos and under the podcasts anyway. So thank you so much, Reneau. You gave us so much in this short conversation, plenty of takeaways. And I'm sure people will benefit a lot and will take it to their lives, because this only the 4 steps it's, for me, it's life-changing. I can see how people can, in simple way, engage in their lives and to see beyond any limitation that they have on daily basis. And it's really powerful. So thank you for sharing, and thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for inviting me. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you so much. Have a great day. Thank you.